Welcome to the Gregory Macur podcast, where we explore key questions in philosophical and practical ways. Okay, hey everyone, welcome to the Gregory Macur podcast. I've got Stewart with me. Stephen, I met him about 2.5 years ago, something like that, whilst we were both working in Nanjing. And when we first met, we didn't click as like really good friends, but we met and I think we kind of saw something in each other, and that was dedication and graft and hard work. And as I got to know him and we both progressed through some postgraduate qualifications and then looking into fitness and found out about his past training for Ironmans and an avid keenness in yoga and a level of expertise as well. He is the guy for me to talk to about this kind of question. So what we're exploring is what can be found in the pain of endurance. So how you doing, Steve?
Hi, Greg. Nice to see you, and thank you for inviting me on your podcast. I'm very happy to be here, although, and excited to talk about everything as well.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I would just ask is, can you tell us a bit about the Iron Man? How did that happen?
Yeah, so what happened with that is I had run, and I was never a guy who was into endurance type sports either. I started to run, I think, when I was in university because I felt a little stressed. And then I said, okay, I want to run a marathon to push myself. So I signed up and I ran one marathon. And at the time, I thought that is the most difficult thing I could do. Like the idea of running for more than 1 hour. I thought, oh, I can never do that. So I had these limits in my mind about, what I was capable of. So I done that. Second time I run a marathon, I wanted to push again. So I signed up 1 month before the second marathon started, and I said I want to get like a personal best time. So my plan was to drop 5 kilos and train for this marathon and run it in a personal best. So I done that, and it was really difficult, because I felt like every time I done something like that, I had these limits in my mind of what I was capable of. So I had the experience with the first marathon, then the second marathon. Well, okay, then I realized I can do these things, but I don't want to run a third marathon. I thought, what's the point? I already done it. I don't want to be a skinny marathoner, because I had already had that experience. And I thought I could do a half Ironman. But I didn't feel that was like a great challenge. So I said, I will run. No, and I didn't want to do like any little sprint triathlons or anything like that. I wanted to do the hardest thing. So I said, I will do an Ironman. That's the hardest race. So I want to do the most difficult race. But of course, I had not been open water swimming before. And cycling, I was okay with. Running, I knew I could do the running part. But we signed up because I completed this with my friend. We had 9 months to train. So usually people, they train for it's a multi-year thing.
Yeah.
They will build up from a little race to a bigger race. But we had both run some marathons, and then we decided in 9 months we were going to do this Ironman. So I remember signing up, and of course I told everyone what I was going to do, because it's like having that pressure on yourself, like social pressure. Yeah,
you're accountable. Everyone knows. So if you don't do it, everyone knows.
Yeah, I think that pressure, like, I think maybe some people respond well to pressure like that. For me, it's something I respond well to, like, oh, I'm seeing these people every day, and I've told them I'm going to do something. So yeah, that was part of it. So I had 9 months to train for this. And I was terrified of swimming in open water. And I had just kind of finished teaching myself how to swim in the pool. You know, like at one point, swimming in the deep end, I thought was scary. So then the whole thing become, how can I open water swim? Because once you go to a loch or a lake and you see what a kilometer looks like, you know, so it's terrifying and it's cold.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had to figure that out. And, you know, just really the problem with that was just getting used to that open water environment. Because it's so dangerous as well. I just, they have undercurrents. You can, if it's not the best, if you're at the wrong location, it can be very dangerous.
Do
And
you,
then
off
you
the
have
top
to
of your head,
adjust to that.
do you remember the distances that are required for an Ironman? It's running, swimming, and biking, right?
Yeah, I think it's 3.9 kilometer swim, and then it was 120 kilometer, 180 kilometer bike, and then the marathon at the end is 42.2 kilometers. I
So
think that's roundabout.
fundamentally, an Ironman is endurance. It is endurance. It's like how you need to keep going through these barriers, right?
Yeah, it's an endurance race, and I think it was originally designed for basically crazy people who wanted to just push themselves as far as they could go. But in my eyes, at the beginning, it was all these limits I had on myself. And then I thought, well, if I had a gun to my head, if I really wanted to do it, then I could do it. You just need to put in the training. That's how I thought about it. But it's because it was 9 months to do it. That was the difficult part.
Yeah.
You know, but it was the right time. I didn't have a job when I signed up. Instead, I was just thinking about because I was still in Scotland at the time. I was back home, and like I wanted to. I was just studying an acting class. I was at a performing arts school. I didn't have much. I didn't have a job. I did get a job eventually, but like all I was doing was like I was focused on teaching myself to become a better swimmer and train for this Ironman and like acting. And that was it. Because I had one. It was all about fear as well. One was fear of open water swimming. The other was the fear because from acting class, because I was not a confident public speaker, so there was a lot of fear going on in my life at that point, I think. But the actual race was and training for it wasn't too bad. It become monotonous. There's a lot of boredom in it that I found. That was one of the difficult things, like sitting on a bike for 6 hours.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about
Cons-
that being one of the challenging aspects.
Yeah, because now I look back and I just like I'm in the gym and I think I just kind of want to be a bit bigger and look good and kind of have a good run and good cycle. So I really have no idea what my thought process was at that time. I think there was just it's just if you're having people who want to push themselves through a lot of pain, it's the sort of thing they want to do. Or I was thinking like, what would happen to me? What would it be like? How would I feel? Would I have all this energy and stuff after I train for it? So I
So
was curious as well. And ego, there was ego involved.
yeah,
I
listening
want
to
to be the
this.
guy who run an Ironman. That was it.
Yeah, listening to this story, this example of going from very little to no training in swimming, very little to no training in bike riding, and having done a couple of marathons before, to immersing yourself for 9 months in pursuit of an Ironman. And I seem to recall you got an all right time in it as well.
Yeah, yeah, pretty decent. I got around 15 hours or something. It wasn't anything special, but
But
uh oh,
hit.
also like I didn't tell you, like I come off the bike during the Ironman. I come off the bike and
Yes.
my knee was fucked up. Like my left knee was like really fucked up. I couldn't put any weight on it. And then I go into the little tent, and there's some guy looking at me, and he has like really concerned, disgruntled face, like, oh man, like you, what's going on? Like you can't do this. But then I tried, I was like, no, I will be fine. So I tried to walk, I tried to run out the tent, like just be composed and calm. If I be composed and calm, no, everything is all right. I can't walk, and my knee is, if I bend it below, if I bend it slightly, it's painful, really painful. I can't fully flex my knee to walk. So I have to move, I have to keep my left knee extended and put weight on it. So I have to hobble walk the whole time. This marathon took like 6 hours because I had to hobble walk the whole time, and I'm running by people and they're just looking at me concerned. Like,
how did you not give up when you were in that pain?
I don't know. I decided I was going to do it no matter what. Um, I don't know. I think I've always trained really hard, I think. And I think I have a fairly high pain threshold because I know that from lifting weights, and also I trained like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like nogi grappling and stuff. So I kind of seen myself and compared myself with other people. I know like my pain tolerance was relatively high, but it was, yeah.
Do you think your pain tolerance was high the day you were born, or was it something that was just normal like everyone else's, and slowly through exposing yourself to things like grappling and endurance sports and training and weightlifting and now difficult yoga as well, it grew?
I don't know. I think, well, I don't think I'm anything special. I know there's like elite level athletes, and you wouldn't believe like the amount of like pain and lactate that's in their blood when they're training hard. So I had that tested before. I had like lactic threshold tests and stuff like that. So I know it's a bit above normal, but no, I just said I was going to do it. I had told everyone, like I put all this pressure on myself, so that was it. But part of it was there are people there. I don't want to be the guy who walks away from the race, but it was like extremely painful. I couldn't really walk properly, and the last because we done like 6 laps. The marathon was 6 laps. Every time you do a lap, you get a band. So it was a bit easier to break it up in my mind. Also, that become like a huge thing. Well, like in training, like if you were saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to train for 7 hours, for 9 hours. Like it's just, you can't think like that. It had to be break everything up into little parts because it's so long. You know, by the time you get onto the run, you've already forgot about the swim. You forgot about the bike.
But when you're on the challenge
bike,
to manageable chunks.
Yeah, it's like you just have to like take it as it comes. But yeah, the marathon was an absolute nightmare. And by the end, I had blisters on my feet as well. So it just kept getting worse and worse. I don't know what I was thinking. Actually, I just know like my jaw was like very tense, like because I was like gritting my teeth like a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was something that was very important to me. It was like I felt like it was like proving myself that I was I don't know, like able to do something of like to able to meet an adequate challenge, to conquer something that was
an adequate challenge by
like I don't know,
most
like
people's definition is to go for a few mile jog or something. I like that you grew it like to a point where it turned into a 15-hour race.
Yeah, but like that like in some countries they have like it's like a rite of passage or something, like you put your hand in the tree with the fire ants.
Yes, yeah,
who can you survive the pain? Okay, then that changes you. The
Yeah.
idea is like they have these rites of passages that changes you. So I felt
Hmm.
like I would that some by doing that that would change me, or that would it would have some effect. I felt like it was important for that reason. It wasn't like something I signed up because I thought this would be enjoyable. I thought pushing myself through that amount of pain would be uh oh, mm, would
Would
have
change
some
you,
like
would
benefit.
help you
Yeah,
evolve.
it would have like beneficial effects.
Did it?
So I think so, because like after I done that, I thought I could do anything. So like had I then went to China after that, it was a lot of it was about like fear as well. So like I didn't know if I could do that. And then open water swimming, I used to think like, oh, like I may like fucking die
Mm.
in the open water. So there was fear in that. Yeah, and then like after I managed that, then it was on to China, which was also a bit scary. But I thought, yeah, I'd done Iron Man. I trained for that, so I can go to China. I can go teach. I can go survive over there as well. But after the Iron Man, I can't remember if like because I trained pretty hard as well. Like I'm sure like there was a couple times like just like kind of bad injuries, like pissing blood and
Mm.
stuff like that. I had to go to the hospital. So I can definitely push to a point. And if I want to do something, I know I can make myself do it. But again, I don't feel like there's people who are far beyond what I'm capable of. And
I
after the
guess.
Ironman, I blacked out as well. Like, so I passed out. I was like, I went to McDonald's to get a burger. I'm trying to put the thing in the machine, and then I just black out. And I wake up and I'm on the ground, and there's like some people who are medics during the race. They are lifting my legs up. So yeah, I pushed until the point that I blacked out. So uh, I've never had that before. Never fainted before. So
Yeah. So if we extrapolate from that story and that example and that experience, it's like there's an element of pushing, increasing your capacity, increasing your limits, and even breaking down limits that you perhaps have set upon yourself. So I'm not the kind of person who could do that. But really, if you go and confront that and you test yourself and you push through those moments of pain and you train yourself to sit through the monotonous boredom aspect of parts that might be less painful but still take a long time of doing something that's perhaps not so engaging, you get to grow. You perhaps equip yourself with different aspects of who you can become. What do you think
yeah,
about that?
I think so. I think there's a lot of skills to be learned from it. And I was interested also like if I go value value learning skills, right? So, if you can focus on something, especially like you said, it's boring, that's monotonous for 6 hours, then that translates into other aspects of life as well. And that's
Absolutely.
proved to be true. That's proved to be true because after that and coming to China has probably been the most productive period of my life
Mm.
because I have more energy and I can focus on things better, I think. So yeah, I think you get to see different sides of yourself, especially if it's something you've not done before.
Mm.
And there's skills that come from it, I guess. If I've not really thought about it too much, but yeah, that makes sense. I agree with that.
I think another example that's quite easily seen with you is you told me before that you weren't a massively academic person, but you've still studied two postgraduate degrees. You have your master's,
Yeah,
postgraduate in
because
education.
I really didn't like university. I But it's necessary because what are the other options? You know,
I think
um,
it's necessary for some people. Yeah. And for some
some people
pathways,
enjoy
it's
it though.
necessary. Yeah,
Some
yeah,
people
yeah.
enjoy it though as well.
Some people enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, but the thinking with university was also that's going to benefit me. So when I was doing undergrad, I didn't like it. Actually, I thought it was probably one of the worst things I could be going through because I thought it was so difficult. And I didn't like, so I studied a life science degree, but I didn't study high school biology at all. And
Mm,
then I was studying like advanced biology for 1 year. So that was like extremely difficult. But I thought again, like beneficial. And I still have the same way of thinking. Like if I go do something uh and it's ultimately beneficial, then that's gonna be have the greatest like gains. Like I have more to take from that experience than if I, but that's also why I've had like so many different jobs and I studied so many different things because if I say like, okay, so now it's like teaching, now we're teaching at the minute. So I'm exploring teaching and it's been 2.5 years and we've done like a postgraduate certificate, like university study, multiple jobs, different projects, all teaching, 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 teaching. But if I do that for I feel like if I do that for 3 years or 5 years, it's almost 3 years now, then it's I don't keep learning the same to the same extent. I don't keep taking from it the same way that I did the first year. So then maybe it's better to explore something else. I always thought like that.
mm,
It's maybe better to explore new things because I will take more from it. I will learn more from it. Like
mm.
I get bored quickly as well usually, but yeah,
Well,
that's what I think.
there's an interesting debate for an idea there. It would be like, do you specialize or do you try to become, I guess you could say, multi-talented? Um, so I quite like the Hein Grinot quote where he says specialization is for insects. And then he goes on to talk about how people need to be able to change diapers. And he lists a collection of other things that people need to be able to do that an insect doesn't need to be able to do. An insect can just specialize at being a professional at these very few areas. But then if you look at people who have become extremely wealthy, a lot of them have specialized in one area and they push that to the point where they rise up through that domain over a period of time and they emerge at the top of that domain. But perhaps they don't have their fingers in any other pots. So that's
Yeah.
slightly off the topic of pain and endurance. I do want to go back to what you just talked about before,
Oh,
which is make it so where you want to achieve something, you want to do something. How do you do it? Well, there's two great different lines of research. They go on in opposite ways. One of them being make yourself accountable, tell everyone that you're going to do it,
mm,
and then you're held responsible for your actions. But then there's another line of research that says when you tell other people you do it, you get the positive emotion release, you get the dopamine as though you've done it already. So it might
mm.
satiate your hunger. So, and I think that's a temperamental thing. Some people go down this road.
Well, that
They,
was philosophical because they have that philosophical idea. You know, the person, three people are running a race. Person one says, "Oh, I don't think I will do too well in this race." The second person, I feel like I'm going to do really well in this race, and then the third person he's already telling people he's won. So, like, I guess that's about confidence and self-belief. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but it's different emotional states maybe related to those things that have an effect. Is that what you're saying?
um, to some, definitely, I agree with that, and I think that's reflected very well in the research on belief, on self belief,
Mm.
and
Mm. Yeah, because you
especially
know
in
all
the
about that.
yeah, especially in the new research relating to placebos. So
Oh,
again, I'll put relevant studies in the underneath the video. There's one called the milkshake study where I'll make it very short, and I'd recommend people read it if they want to know the specifics. But they gave people two milkshakes, two different groups of people. One got the supposedly low calorie milkshake. The other group got the supposedly high calorie milkshake, and they tested the ghrelin levels in those people. So ghrelin's the hunger hormone. If you've got high levels of ghrelin, you're going to be hungrier, essentially. What they found was when they told people that their milkshake was a low-calorie one, their ghrelin levels went up. They had higher levels of ghrelin, making them hungrier. So just telling people that the milkshake they drunk was rich and had a high calorie profile suppressed their hunger more than if you tell them that they have a low calorie milkshake. And there's multiple studies behind this. So the mindset that you have and the belief system that you have, there's a very good podcast on Andrew Huberman's podcast. I forget the lady he was interviewing, but the research she's doing is exploring all of these areas, and it's becoming evident that the mindset that we have, the belief that we have about something, it impacts everything for us. It impacts our performance. It impacts us on a physiological level as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think so they're talking about like your interpretation of what's happening has a biological effect.
Yeah.
But I don't know how susceptible everyone is to the placebo effect. But it is interesting. It is really interesting to think about. And I know, for example, like in the supplement industry, a lot of what is marketed, and they've done research on this because I can remember the infographic, and it's like a lot of the supplements, like I think around 80% of the supplements didn't contain what they said they contain, but people are still susceptible to the marketing, and they think what they think they're getting, their expectations about what they are getting is different from the reality of it. But then again, maybe it has some placebo effect. Maybe that's necessary. You know, if you think you're going to become big and strong, maybe that has an effect.
Well, there's another study about that as well. I'm going to have to be digging up studies after this podcast. They looked at maids in hotels, and the theory was that you can reap the benefits of exercise based on the normal amount of movement that you're doing in a day, or you can not reap them based on your belief set, your mindset. So they told one group of maids that they showed them that the amount of exercise they do was in line with the recommendations. So they showed them that they're pushing the cart around the hotel enough, they're walking up and down stairs, they're doing a sufficient amount of exercise, changing bed sheets. The other group, they said they didn't point this out to, they didn't tell them, they just collected their data. So they measured them on a range of health indicators, waist size, things like that. And what they found was when they did the follow-up, to their knowledge, there was no changes in behavior, there was no changes in diet. But the group that were pointed out, they were told, actually, you do enough exercise, you get enough exercise in your job, you're living a healthy life. Their health indicators improved, I think it was threefold, but I'm not going to be able to say that specifically. I'd recommend people check the research out, but the point is, it was significant. And
it's absolutely fascinating that your awareness of something, if I'm listening correctly and interpreting it correctly, your awareness of something can have an effect. Like, so if you're, like you said, I like yoga, I do a lot of yoga. So maybe becoming aware of the fact that like, oh, I'm breathing out and breathing in at this point in time, or being aware of the feeling of the soles of your feet on the floor. Like a lot of time we are not paying attention to it. So like what you give attention to and what you're aware of, like has an effect, right? Like if you're only aware, because they have these studies, there's that the book called Flourish, for example, like positive psychology, and he works with extremely depressed patients, this doctor, and one of the intervention strategies that he found to be really beneficial was to have his patients, keep a gratitude journal at the end of every day, 3 things that went well and why. And like what I was saying with like, okay, focus on the feeling on the soles of your feet on the floor, the feeling in your tummy. Like they're not aware of it. They're concentrating on, and it's maybe like I do not know someone's life. Perhaps it's completely rational, and maybe there's a genetic component as well. And like there's different degrees, different diagnoses, and people suffer in different ways. But anyway, this was a successful exercise. But so he is saying that purely if they are extremely depressed, then they are focusing on, negative things and negative ruminating thoughts and all these things that are, and so he said to focus their attention to kind of shine their awareness on things that are going well and why, and then that has a positive effect.
That's
to gradually change what they're giving attention to.
Yeah, and
no, that I just read the book, but
no, but that's very interesting. I think it's definitely a good sidebar we've had there, and I think mindset is a very important thing, and I think mindset is what you needed to push through the Iron Man for the endurance and for the pain. I guess the next question I would have is what can, like, if we're going to say what can be found, like what specific things of value do you find when immersed in pain?
I think, like, I don't know. For me, it was just it's necessary things to get done. So, for example, at one point I was sleeping on a couch and I was working full time and studying for my undergrad and paying for my undergrad. Then it was like the most difficult thing I thought I could do was a master's, because I didn't feel like I was smart. So I wanted to be, I need to prove to myself I'm kind of smart. And then I thought, well, with the Iron Man and acting, there was fear involved. I had a fear of kind of public speaking, so I wanted to improve that skill. So, and with the Iron Man, it was more about, I had all these limits and I wanted to push through pain. Felt like I was boxing myself in with what I thought I could do. So all those experiences involved pain. Coming to China involved pain as well. I thought it was, and especially teaching, and it's kind of competitive. That can go, you can come here and it can be a kind of relaxed, fun experience, or like me and you, we took it very seriously. So there was a pain in the learning process. And what I think comes from it is you can become more self-secure. I think there's a lot of internal things that go on, and maybe you have certain beliefs about yourself and what you're capable of. And once you have these experiences, then it affects how competent you feel to take action. I feel like a lot of people, or maybe it's not true, but I met a lot of people, and this always stuck in my head. I wish I had went back and done this. I wish I had done that. I wish I had done this. And then it always stuck in my head. Like, these people, it's not like they can't do it. It's just they are not taking action. So a lot of my life become about, like, I don't want to be saying that. So I want to be taking action. Then you take action, you realize, well, there's pain involved. So I think you have to just be, I think a competence comes from it. A competence that you can take successful action and change things. Then you experience the change as well.
Yeah, can I say what I've interpreted there, and then you can tell me if I've got that right. So at the start, we kind of talked about how pushing through pain and endurance, and it can expand us, it can grow, we can grow, our limits move beyond what we perhaps believe they are. And what we believe is actually fundamental. It's so important what we believe. It can even change our biology. And then a follow-up to that would be, let me just reflect for a second. You're welcome to add something whilst I just process this.
Well, I think it's an adaptation response. I think we learn from experience, but I don't think there's, like, I think adaptation involves pain. I think
Mm,
really like, so in biology, they say hormesis. Hormesis means basically exposure to a low dose of something toxic, a low dose of a stressful experience, something painful has benefit, as long as it's not an extreme. But we need a little bit of stress, like to
yes,
adapt, right?
yes,
So if you want to
yes.
adapt, then there's pain. But for me, like, okay, there's the physical, but I think learning is quite, can be painful.
It can be.
Learning is, I feel like now more recent experiences being in China and with teaching, and which was relatively new, and doing it to a high level, and now I'm in a very, very good school. Like that, that's, it's pain, there's pain in that, you know. But it's like, what are, like, do you want to stay put? Do you want to be one of those people who are saying, I wish I had done that? Or do you go through some pain and
Yes.
adapt?
So
And
just linking a little bit there, I love the introduction of hormesis to this discussion. That's just perfect. It makes so much sense. And I really, the other thing I liked is talking about taking action. It's, if you don't feel competent, you can't take action, so you can't do the things you want to do, and then you end up one of these people who looks back on their life and goes, I wish I'd done that. Oh, I never did this, I never did
mm,
that, I never spoke to that girl, I never spoke to that guy, I never,
oh
I
yeah,
never tried
yeah,
that new skill, I never tried to learn
yeah.
guitar. Doesn't mean you have to
Oh
learn it, but at least
no.
you tried. And so it equips you to be ready for action so that you can confront things in the future, and you avoid that deathbed scenario where you look back on your life and you go, I never went overseas. I never
Yes,
lived
like I,
here. I
oh my
never,
God, yeah.
mm, and that's painful.
That's
And
the
then
fear. Oh yeah,
there's,
that's the fear
there's
for
one more
sure.
thing I want to clip on here, which I think you'll like to add to as well, which is how does it impact us in regards to reactivity? So if we're terrified of
Oh,
pain,
oh, oh yeah, like if you do not, there's a quote by you know, like it's kind of cliche, but because in every essay anyone writes, they talk about Maslow. But he has a quote that says something like, uh, if you want to, if you want to experience growth, you need to confront fear. And if you want to
mm,
continue to grow, then you need to continue confronting fear. So the idea
mm,
is that you move towards fear. But I mean, if you, yeah, how can, I mean, how do you stop responding to it? If you have a real fear of something and you are reactive and it's disrupting your life and you don't really process it or come up with a strategy to deal with it,
mm,
then that's maybe continually with you. For me, like, for example, like communicating, I felt uncomfortable with that. So then I went to performing arts school. I studied in like acting class and stuff. I exposed myself to it and I trained myself in different ways. But now I feel very, very confident. And as I feel like almost the last 5 years has been just an exploration of that, like communicating, and now like working with kids as well. Like that was not something I wanted to do, but if I become competent with that, that has massive benefit. um yeah, I think that takes away your reactivity, because once you experience something, you get you have, you know what the reality of it is like, and a lot of times uh it's changing people's perception of you, and maybe that's really not uh as scary as what you think. I think like once you do something, you get to experience the reality of it. But I don't know what it is for each person. I know I certainly wasn't jumping on a plane to China to try and become a great teacher in a top school
mm.
like 8 years ago, but maybe just, you know, signing up for, step by step, doing something, and then dealing with the level of uh challenge, an appropriate level of challenge, appropriate level of development for yourself at whatever point, you know.
Yeah, well,
So yeah, it
that's
takes
one of
away.
the
You
that's one
become
of the
more
rules
competent. You
in
become less reactive, I think.
yeah, that's one of the rules in Jordan Peterson's first book, appropriate level of challenge for yourself. Yourself being a key element of that sentence, and the rule being compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So that appropriate level of challenge being for you.
Mm.
It's interesting that your appropriate level of challenge for you was to go from a marathon, which is about 4 hours, between 4 and 6 hours for most people, I suspect. I'm not a big marathon runner. I could be off with that. And then your next level of challenge is to go for a 15-hour Ironman. What do you think made you make that big leap?
I knew I knew how far I could push myself, and I knew that I could get my swimming to the level that it needed to be at. I just felt, and I had a level of fitness that would facilitate the whole thing. Yeah, but it was crazy. I don't know. It's not like I was still I was still like lifting weights. I was still doing yoga. It was a part-time job. It was almost a part-time job, like 15, 20 hours per week. But it's also different from now. Like, okay, like that's like probably the greatest thing I could have done at that point that I was capable of. That was a worthwhile pursuit to conquer. Like
Yes.
I feel like I would maybe gain most from that because like I thought I was going to move countries anyway. Now it's different. Now the appropriate level of challenge is maybe like where I'm at, and the job position I'm in. I get that. I get what I need in terms of challenge from that, I think. But it was just at that point in time, that's all I was thinking about. I don't know why specifically. I don't know. When I look back now, I think, what was that? It's a bit crazy, but that's just how I seen it. That was the thing I had to do.
Which
That's
do you
just where I
think
was
is
at. Like,
which do you think is
I
a
don't know
more
why.
challenging aspect? Endurance or pain?
I think, yeah, I think, well, I'm gonna say the pain, but I'm thinking why. I think pain because I have,
It's a tough question.
yeah, it's a tough question. I don't think
My
well, it depends
instinct.
on it's subjective as well. It depends on the person. For some people, endurance is natural. It's normal, But for me, and not everyone's gonna. They say like only a small percentage of people will run like Iron Man, and it's maybe not just physical in terms of being physically capable, but just mentally dealing with like the monotony of it. And I guess maybe like people experience pain differently as well. But yeah, I think pain is the hardest thing. Like because now I see some people training and stuff, and I'm trying to do more of like a bodybuilding type workout. And there's so much, if you're going very, very slowly with a movement, you're just trying to like cause as much
Concentrate.
pain, cause as much pain as possible. So now if I experience that pain, it's like, it's like you don't want to deal with it. It's the last thing you want to do is it's like, it's so awful. But then in that pain, there's uh there's like a really amazing feeling in it. It's a good pain, it's not a broken back pain. It's a pain of like uh that has benefit. So I think there's
That's also something Arnold Schwarzenegger would talk about in his interviews with regards to being in the gym.
Yeah, he's of course yeah, that's a different level of human. But the amount of pain those guys are going through as well, like that's interesting. Because, for example, a power lifter, they are psyching themselves up to all these different sports. I don't know, but like a bodybuilder is purposely causing pain, and they're trying to cause pain, and it's that's a crazy thing. And then cyclists and endurance athletes, they're dealing with an insane amount of pain. I don't think that none of them are relaxing on the bike, and it's just they're managing their pain differently. And even guys who are fighters and all that as well. Uh, I just can't imagine like all how they deal with that. But I think in learning and pushing yourself, there is pain, and I think yeah, definitely more challenging to push yourself to do something that's difficult and involves pain, because it's it's like we have an aversion to it. So there's like a dichotomy of ideas where it's I'm in pain, this is bad. I have self-control, this is beneficial. So how do you deal with that? You have to go
So
through,
that's
you have
like,
to control yourself.
yeah, this is like where your conscious state is taking control of the instinct. Like when you have a cold shower and your body goes,
Yeah,
get out the shower, but your mind can go, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to choose this. And you can do the same with pain. Your body says,
yeah, there's a
okay, stop on 8 press ups, stop on 8 reps. But your mind can go, I can do 9.
yeah. And I think as well as setting like long-term goals, like you are the same. Like so you work non-stop and you have these goals,
Yes.
and it's really like it's unbelievable the amount of work that you do. But I work hard as well. And it's although day to day it just seems like completing certain tasks, there's a lot
Mm.
of thought that goes into it. There's a lot that's being sacrificed. There's a lot that's not being done. So again, it's that same dichotomy of ideas where you are going through some pain, but ultimately it's thought out. You have self-control, and it's beneficial. But really, it would be nice to stay in bed all day and do nothing. It's like there's a lot of uh, like like uh what's the word?
Well, I've got something good to add there, which is it might be good to stay in bed all day, or it might feel good in that moment. But first of all, I don't think that's going to feel good for very long unless you're having some escape or tricking yourself with drugs or alcohol. I
Yeah, of
think
course. So you
after
have
a
to go
week of
through
doing that,
through
no, go on, go on, go on, go on.
yeah, you have to choose your poison. You have to
Yeah,
pick something, and there's sacrifice in it. So it's
yeah.
just I feel by having these uh challenges and and putting myself in difficult circumstances, I think there's most more to gain from it
Mm.
ultimately,
So
although it's not easy. But
I
everyone
think,
experiences that to some degree, I think.
yeah, I think trying to address that question, what can be found in the endurance of pain, or we could even say endurance and pain. I think we
Mm,
started off and we latched on to the breaking down of limits. So I'm going to try
mm.
and recap the
Yeah,
ideas again.
this is annoying. You like because I realized like I just think I can do this or I think I can do that. So that means I think I am this person. And it's like once you go through it a few times of okay, I can do more than what I think I can do or I believe I can do, then that has a knock-on effect. And then but it's not like you jump into things that are over your head. It's almost like there's a series of steps. The next thing comes up once you've mastered or managed the initial thing.
Yeah,
You
from
must have
time to
that
time we
experience as
do.
well.
Yeah,
Well,
from
that's
time to time
learning
we
as well,
do.
right?
Yeah, well, from time to time we do fly too close to the sun, like Icarus, and perhaps those opportunities given to us a little bit too soon. The wings melt and we fall. Um, I think that's something we all need to try and be mindful of. My experience of that, I've been fairly fortunate in that I'm quite happy to ask questions. So when I find myself in a new domain, or my leadership role has changed, or anything along those lines happens, I'm quite happy to turn to my peers or turn to the mentors above me and say, what can I do here? What do I do with this? How does this work? And in the beginning, you kind of sound a little bit silly, and maybe you're asking questions and people are thinking, oh, okay, well, fine, I'll answer his questions. But then you get to be the person who doesn't make the monumental mistakes. And then after a month, you've asked all the questions and you can do it. And then people turn to you and go, wow, you've done great. Oh, you're so good. You can do this job. You can do this role. You can achieve these goals. You delivered on this project. Well done. Wow. And you avoided any major catastrophes. So I think just asking questions is a relevant aspect of that. Yeah, I want to try and recap the ideas of addressing that key question. So
that's also reductive, though. That's also reductive. Like there's a lot going on. There's a lot to manage when you go into a new role, and then it's like, do you meet up? Do you match your own expectations? Like, oh, I believe I can do this to a high standard, because you could easily go in and everything go wrong. Even if you ask those questions, it could still not be applied rightly. It cannot be done right, like how something is done. So I think like anytime, I think is, I don't know if to say status or self-image, like is on the line when you go into a new experience. Can I cope? Will you sink or swim? Like anytime there's a big challenge, like there's that risk that something goes wrong, that you, oh shit, like I didn't fucking do it. But like that never really happens to me. Every little challenge I set has been achieved. I'm sure you are the same, because it's well thought out.
Yeah, and there's a level of tenacity, and it's that I am going to do this. And I think that's represented in the Iron Man. So I asked you, how did you make it after you'd injured your leg, and how did you make it to the end? And you said something along the lines of, well, I just said to myself, I'm going to go and do that no matter what. So short of you dying, you were going to drag yourself with your hands across the finish line. So that level of tenacity applied to
I thought once I
work.
passed out, I blacked out, and I was unconscious. I woke up and I thought, am I dead? I said that to my friend. Like I thought, like, have I died or something? Like it was getting done. Like that's, I take things quite seriously as well. Like all or nothing, bend or break. I was saying, like, before I done Iron Man, I was saying bend or break. So I either bend and survive, or I break. Like it breaks me. And that's how I felt about coming here as well. And then my goal become to teach in a top school. And that was the same approach. But like, how else to live? Like otherwise, I feel like one of those people that I've met, I wish I had done it, blah blah blah. I just don't think it's something I want to be. I don't want my character to have any of those parts to it, you know. Like I never done it. I didn't really care. You are the same. I know you are the same, but yeah, that's it, I think. It's fascinating as well, like the whole everything. Like if I explore something, if I go learn something, maybe it's difficult, but I find it fascinating as well. That's why probably I've experienced success in a lot of different things, because, well, to some degree, I'm not saying I'm anything special, but like if I go do something, usually comes out coming out the other end, it turns out okay, or I achieve it. Whether that's a job or like some challenge or whatever, physical thing. So,
and I think that tenacity of the ability to just say, I'm going to do this no matter what, that starts off with small things that might seem like large challenges at the time, but aren't huge in themselves. But then as you expand yourself and as you grow and as you become more competent, you can take on bigger problems, and you can tackle bigger challenges.
Yeah, I think what happens as well is like, even like on a simpler level of like just every day, like, you know, when I first went into like a top school, I was like daunted by the experience. Then I get there, you have the experience of being there, blah blah blah. You realize how competent you are with whatever skills you have. On a normal, like just on a simplified way of looking at things, just like I can do that. I can do that guy's job, right? It's like that's like people start to look different as well. Like if you have this, like if you are an extremely fit person, people don't look as fit to you. If you are an extremely intelligent person, maybe people don't look as intelligent. Like once you have some degree of competence, things look a bit different. It's not some scary job that fucking only this person can do. But maybe once you become a bit more competent and skilled and you develop yourself, you see, you know, the person who is whatever it is and you're the superior in your work, you kind of see them, oh yeah, that's maybe something I can do. So I think that's what happens. Like just things look a little different once you achieve a certain level of competence, or it gives you a bit more status. I think status or status, you have a bit more value in your environment, and I guess that's partly why we want to learn and grow as well. Unless, you know, everything's all good, maybe it's personality, I don't know.
Very, very interesting. We're going to need to call it to a close here, but just before we do, I want to kind of recap the key ideas that we addressed this question with. What can be found in the endurance of pain, or, you know, another way to say it, like mentioned before, what can be found in endurance and pain. Started out, we kind of talked about the limiting beliefs that we have on ourselves and our limits and expanding them. And then we talked about how important it is to expand our beliefs about where we can go and what we can do, and how that's represented in research and in literature and in books, like Flourish, like the one you mentioned. And then we talked a bit about the ability to cope with pain. The more that you experience it, the more that you can experience it. And you brought up hormesis, which I think is just such an important addition to the concept. And then we looked at, where did we go from there? I might need a little bit of help here.
Talking about I can't even remember. Talking about just experiencing pain and learning and pain, and then the other side of that, you know, if you do not take action, maybe there's consequences of that, and then having necessary sacrifice.
So the idea that as we become more competent and as we expand ourselves, we become more like the people who go and do the things that they want to confront. And we reduce the risks of ourselves growing to an old age and looking back on our lives and going, I wish I'd done that. So we become more action orientated, and we limit our reactivity to problems. So when we see pain coming, it doesn't seem like as much of a threat. So we're not as reactive, and we can be more responsive. And then wrapping that up nicely with an ability to grow and increase our capacity and increase our ability to learn and push through these challenges, and then appropriate challenges for us as an individual on an individual basis increases too. So we can move into more challenging domains, and we can master those more challenging domains. And I guess reap the rewards of those
that's also
domains.
really interesting. You can enter different environments, and then within that have more, you're more skilled, more competent, and of course have different challenges, you know. deal with
Yeah.
different levels of complexity, I think.
Yeah. So the ability to push through pain and muster endurance, push through endurance, manage endurance in sports. Say if you can run a 15-hour, if you can do a 15-hour Iron Man, and then you want to write a book, or you want to write a novel, or you want to write articles, then writing articles, writing books, writing novels, these are challenging things, and they require a great deal of endurance. And
Yeah, of course. That's the other thing. Like now I have a kind of appreciation for stuff like that because I see that as okay, I could do the physical thing, but the amount of work you put in, I'm like, I kind of have a more of an appreciation for that because that is also like a test of will,
well, definitely
it's not easy.
writing the two books I wrote took in an element of endurance. Parts of it I enjoyed, but you don't enjoy every single aspect of something that you do. So when I'm writing the book, there's parts of it that are fun, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then there's always parts that's like, this is very challenging. I'm kind of a little bit lost. I'm in the weeds, and then you're deleting and rewriting and deleting and rewriting, and it takes endurance. And definitely endurance that I've developed in different domains is very easily applied to the domain of writing, and I suspect will be easily applied to different domains. Well,
Yeah, it's
it applies to
fascinating.
the career, and it applies to study.
Yeah, of course. Like if, because a lot of in work is writing and being clear, concise, conveying the right ideas. And if you're someone who is extremely well versed in writing and correcting, then that makes you a far better person in your workplace environment, especially if that's something that takes importance, that skill that takes a high importance in your working environment. Yeah, it's really interesting. Or just the idea like, well, I started to do a bit of writing just because I felt like it. I seen what you do. And I'm like, oh, that's influenced me a bit. But even just doing that, I felt like, oh, I improve a bit. I learned some stuff, and then that helps in work. So it's worthwhile doing things just out of curiosity. There's nothing like there wasn't anything to gain from that for me, But then that's how you done that, and then you have all your books. Like it wasn't like something that was pre-planned for you. It was more so you were curious about it, I
Yeah.
think.
When we met, I
That's
wasn't
also strange. Like, are
hadn't
you
written anything.
destined just to do things? Yes, like that was the weirdest thing to see. Like
Yeah.
you just started working non-stop. When like I met you, you were just working non-stop. And like that's
Yeah.
how it looked. From the outside, I just looked at you and you were doing like this. That's how it looked. Just you on a laptop doing this. But really, like you were doing masters, 2 university courses, working full time. Then you made your own course. You made your own like language teaching course. So all this stuff was going on. But it's interesting
and
that
wrote the first book and published 2 pieces of research.
yeah, it's like all
It
this stuff.
was
But that's all years of taking in information and all this stuff going on below the surface, and then you see the output. So
well, I
yeah, it's
always think
interesting, and that
I like the idea of testing my capacity for output, like how hard can I work? How many things can I do? And the thing I liked about that was a lot of people just do a master's, and that's their full-time thing. A lot of people just do their postgraduate teacher training, and that's just what they do. And a lot of people just work full-time. That's just what they do. Some people just write a book. Some people just create a training course. And I was like, wonder if I could do these 5 full-time jobs all at once. And I was like,
yes, I
well,
love that way of thinking as
yes.
well. Like, it's that idea of limits. Like, why does that happen? Why do I have to think like that?
I agree.
I get a bit annoyed about it. Like,
And
why do I have
people,
to have one job? Why
yeah,
like
and then
that? Like,
people have the preconception like, oh, you're doing too much. It's like, by whose estimation? Are you working too hard? You're going to burn yourself out. Where's your evidence that it's going to burn me as an individual out? That's a
the only
limiting
time
belief
that
that you've got.
the only time I felt burned out was not from endurance exercise, but if I lift too much weights, that's the only thing
Mm.
that burned me out. But then with what you're saying, I think, well, what else to do? Like, what else do you do?
Yeah. What else am I going to do with my time? Oh, you need some downtime. What do you mean? Well, I have downtime in the evening. I watch Netflix. Yeah, I watch Netflix in the
Yeah, you
evening.
hang out
You
with
know, maybe I
friends
watch
or
for an
whatever.
hour. Okay, well, it's not enough. You need to watch for 4 hours. It's like, why don't you use 3 of those hours for something a little bit more productive and
I
doesn't
think
have
we
to
both
drain you?
are very I think we both are very aware of like our behavior,
Mm,
like what we are doing. Like I'm really like that. Like I
mm.
really like I know exactly how I'm spending my time.
Yes. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
then like I know when I'm not doing something.
Yes.
And I've had the experience. That's because I had the experience. I had 1 year. It comes to the end of the year, and it's like
What
I've
did I
really not
do?
done that much. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. Oh, I fucking hate that. Like I never want to experience it. That was like one time that happened, and I was like, oh fuck. Like,
Yes.
well, it's also
Um,
because like you're on your own and you have to make stuff happen. You know, like that's part like there's truth in that as well. Like you have to be, this is it, and make the most of your time, I
yeah.
think.
I think that a good thing to end on is just a reflection of that idea of being the person on your deathbed, looking back on your life and going, I wish I did this, I wish I did that, I wish I did this. And that to me is, I fear that. I see that
Oh
as a
wow.
terrifying proposition. You've only got one life and you don't want to waste all that potential. And that doesn't mean don't have fun. Have fun, go wild, and
Mm-mm.
I definitely think we should be doing that. But you also want to expand your capacity. You want to be able to muster some courage and some spirit so that you can move through those challenging times and you can endure the pain and you can push through endurance. And I think if we were going to give people one tool extracted from your experience, although they can go look into research, and I would advise that, is making it decisive and saying, I am going to do this. And there's a great Will
Mm.
Smith interview that reminds me of. He's talking to the interviewer and he says, the difference between me and everyone else is I'm going to work
Oh
harder.
yeah, yeah.
And the example he gives, he goes, if you and I get on a treadmill and see who can go longer, I'm going to win or I'm going to die. You're going to get off that treadmill first or I'm going to die. And that kind of mentality makes you win. It makes you do the Iron Man.
Yeah.
You do go live in that new country. You do have those experiences. And I don't think people who reach their deathbed look back and go, I wish I missed out on so much by being somebody who goes after the things that they desire, with rigor.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all worth it. And maybe it's a personality thing as well. So I don't know.
Yes.
But we're all different and drawn to different things. For someone else, maybe it's uh the arts or something. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, we like the arts. We've got our domains of interest there.
Yeah,
We're
but
gonna
some people are just like obsessed with music or obsessed with painting or obsessed with different things. Like, but I find is probably if you speak to most people, they will say, there's something I should be doing or something I think I would like to do. But
go
like,
and do it.
so yeah, don't be the person that says, I wish I had done that last
Yeah.
year or something. Like, fuck that. That's
Well,
also because I've seen what can happen as well. Like I've already seen the options. I've seen them.
yes.
I've seen what if I don't do this thing, whether it's exercise or career or a course or some project. Like I know what it's gonna happen.
We know
Like
where it leads.
yes. but it's just hard. Like I said, you're in that dichotomy of like, well, something is painful and requires sacrifice. I have to go fucking work on this other project. I can't go do this thing, blah, blah, blah. So there's a dichotomy of pain and sacrifice, and then also benefit and self-control. You
Mm,
have to control yourself to go do this. And I'm not like pretty much like I'd like to just go wild a lot of the time, but have to be self-controlled and change things because I know what happens if I don't. Like I've had that experience already, and I
mm,
don't want, yeah, I don't want that life at all. A life of everything being the same and being stuck and not having options.
Options is a key one, I think.
Yeah. And then not having stuff to do outside of work, or not being very good at some of the shit I like to do.
Mm.
Like I think that would also not be fun,
Well,
but
Steve,
worth it.
thank you very much for coming on the podcast. And I think we made some headway on this idea, and definitely I like the experience discussion around Iron Man and expanding ourselves and growing and taking from the pain. And I really like the introduction of hormesis and limiting beliefs being expanded and how that can impact us both with regards to what we do, but even on a biological level. So
Yeah, I think I had a lot of fun. I just felt like chatting about something interesting to a friend. So I felt very at ease with your podcasting abilities. Yeah, it's been great.
thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe. Have a good day.